Welcome to Have You Read It? The channel where we bring books to life, one summary at a time. Today we're diving into Noise, A Flaw in Human Judgment by Daniel Kahneman, Olivier Sibony, and Cass R. Sunstein. This book tackles a critical issue that's often overshadowed: noise, the unwanted variability in judgments. In a world obsessed with biases, Noise offers a refreshing perspective, highlighting how inconsistent decisions can lead to unfairness and significant cost in various sectors. What makes this book valuable is its practical approach to understanding and mitigating noise, offering tools and strategies applicable across diverse fields, from medicine to finance. Prepare to have your perceptions challenged as we explore the hidden flaws in human judgment and discover how to make more consistent, equitable decisions. The book Noise starts by illustrating the difference between bias and noise using the metaphor of four teams at a shooting range, highlighting how both systematic deviation and random scatter contribute to error. It emphasizes that noise, often overlooked, is a significant issue in real-world decisions within organizations. The book notes that noise is present in medicine, child custody decisions, forecasts, asylum decisions, personnel decisions, bail decisions, forensic science, and decisions to grant patents. The book is divided into 6 parts. It explores the difference between noise and bias and demonstrates how both public and private organizations can be affected by noise. The book introduces the concept of a noise audit to measure disagreement among professionals within an organization. It explores the nature of human judgment and how to measure accuracy and error, noting that judgments are susceptible to both bias and noise, and describes the equivalence in the roles of the two types of error. The book defines occasion noise as the variability in judgments of the same case by the same person or group on different occasions, highlighting how group discussions can amplify noise due to irrelevant factors. The book then investigates predictive judgment, emphasizing the advantage of rules and algorithms over humans in making predictions, primarily due to their noiselessness. It addresses the limits on the quality of predictive judgment, including objective ignorance, and how it combines with noise to affect prediction quality. The book explores the causes of noise, including interpersonal differences, variations in weighting considerations, and differing uses of scales, also examining why people are often unaware of noise. The book further offers practical ways to improve judgments and prevent errors, presenting noise reduction techniques or decision hygiene, applicable in medicine, business, government, and education. It provides case studies of noise reduction efforts in medical diagnoses, performance ratings, forensic science, hiring decisions, and forecasting. The book introduces the mediating assessments protocol as a general approach to producing more reliable judgments. The book addresses what the right level of noise is, acknowledging that eliminating noise entirely may not be feasible or desirable in some areas, as it could compromise competing values. It urges organizations to conduct noise audits and make efforts to reduce noise to decrease unfairness and costs. The book uses criminal sentencing as an example to show how noise can produce unfairness, noting a judge named Marvin Frankel, who drew public attention to the problem and launched a crusade to fix it. In criminal justice, the book notes that judges have long had a great deal of discretion in deciding on appropriate sentences, and experts have celebrated this discretion and have insisted that criminal sentences should be based on a host of factors involving not only the crime but also the defendant's character and circumstances. The book says that in the 1970s, the universal enthusiasm for judicial discretion started to collapse for one simple reason: startling evidence of noise. Frankel drew public attention to the problem and showed unjustified disparities in the treatment of similar people. Frankel argued for a reduction in noise through a detailed profile or checklist of factors that would include, wherever possible, some form of numerical or other objective grading. A large-scale study of this kind, chaired by Judge Frankel himself, took place in 1974, and it determined that absence of consensus was the norm and that the variations across punishments were astounding. The book then discusses noise in a large insurance company. There, underwriters have the task of setting insurance premiums for potential clients, and claims adjusters must judge the value of claims. The book notes that executives doubted that noise could be a substantial problem for their company. Much to their credit, however, they agreed to settle the question by a kind of simple experiment that the book calls a noise audit. The insurance company's executives were quick to realize that the sheer volume of noise presented an expensive problem. One senior executive estimated that the company's annual cost of noise in underwriting, counting both the loss of business from excessive quotes and the losses incurred on underpriced contracts, was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The book notes the data showed that the price a customer is asked to pay depends to an uncomfortable extent on the lottery that picks the employee who will deal with that transaction, and that customers would not be pleased to hear that they were signed up for such a lottery without their consent. The book stresses right here that variability in judgments is not always unwanted. Consider matters of preference or taste. The book notes that diversity of tastes is welcome and entirely expected, and that no one would want to live in a world in which everyone has exactly the same likes and dislikes. However, diversity of tastes can help account for errors if a personal taste is mistaken for a professional judgment. Variability in judgments is also expected and welcome in a competitive situation in which the best judgments will be rewarded. When several companies or several teams in the same organization compete to generate innovative solutions to the same customer problem, we don't want them to focus on the same approach. The same is true when multiple teams of researchers attack a scientific problem, such as the development of a vaccine. We very much want them to look at it from different angles. The book explains that noise audits reveal system noise. It says that a noise audit is a way to reveal noise. In such an audit, the same case is evaluated by many individuals, and the variability of their responses is made visible. To prepare for the noise audit, executives of the company constructed detailed descriptions of representative cases for each group underwriters and adjusters. Employees were asked to evaluate 2 or 3 cases each, working independently. They were not told that the purpose of the study was to examine the variability of their judgments. The book stresses that system noise is a problem of systems, which are organizations, not markets. When traders make different assessments of the value of a stock, some of them will make money and others will not. Disagreements make markets. But if one of those traders is randomly chosen to make that assessment on behalf of her firm, and if we find out that her colleagues in the same firm would produce very different assessments, then the firm faces system noise, and that is a problem. In singular decisions, the book suggests that the strategies that reduce noise in recurrent decisions should also improve the quality of singular decisions. It stresses that from the perspective of noise reduction, a singular decision is a recurrent decision that happens only once, and that whether you make a decision only once or 100 times, your goal should be to make it in a way that reduces both bias and noise. The book notes that to understand error in judgment, we must understand both bias and noise. Sometimes, as we will see, noise is the more important problem. It says that bias has been the star of the show, while noise is a bit player, usually off stage. It argues that in real-world decisions, the amount of noise is often scandalously high. Wherever you look at human judgments, you are likely to find noise. To improve the quality of our judgments, we need to overcome noise as well as bias. It defines judgment as measurement in which the instrument is a human mind. And it notes that implicit in the notion of measurement is the goal of accuracy, to approach truth and minimize error. It stresses that the goal of judgment is not to impress, not to take a stand, and not to persuade, but that judgment is a conclusion that can be summarized in a word or phrase. If an intelligence analyst writes a long report leading to the conclusion that a regime is unstable, only the conclusion is a judgment. The book stresses that the concept of judgment involves an acknowledgement that you can never be certain that a judgment is right. Matters of judgment differ from matters of opinion or taste, in which unresolved differences are entirely acceptable. Matters of judgment, including professional judgments, occupy a space between questions of fact or computation on the one hand and matters of taste or opinion on the other, and are defined by the expectation of bounded disagreement. It says that evaluative judgments partly depend on the values and preferences of those making them, but they are not mere matters of taste or opinion. For that reason, the boundary between predictive and evaluative judgments is fuzzy, and people who make judgments are often unaware of it. System noise is inconsistency, and inconsistency damages the credibility of the system. The book uses a noise audit of sentencing to study noise in detail with multiple cases. And the goal of the noise audit was to go beyond the vivid, but anecdotal evidence of noise, assembled by Judge Frankel and others, and to determine the extent of sentencing disparity more systematically. It defines level noise as variability in the average level of judgments by different judges and pattern noise as variability in judges' responses to particular cases. In the book, noise is a consequence of the informal nature of judgment. The book discusses occasion noise, emphasizing that, like a basketball player who never throws the ball twice in exactly the same way, we do not always produce identical judgments when faced with the same facts on two occasions. The book adds that just as the shooter's unsteady hand implies that a single shot could have landed somewhere else, noise in the decision-makers and in the decision-making process implies that the singular decision could have been different. It mentions several sources of occasion noise, one that we have all noticed: mood. The book also presents that fatigue, weather, and sequence effects are sources of occasion noise, noting that they are driven by a combination of factors, including the experts' backgrounds and life experiences. A more practical way to show the impact of extraneous and often subconscious factors is by looking at what would have been the outcome had something incidental been different. Who spoke first? Who spoke last? Who spoke with confidence? And so on. The book explores the point that even these minor differences, at least in many group interactions, make a difference in how a group proceeds and what a group decides. The book explains that there is at least one source of occasion noise that we have all noticed: mood. It notes that we've all experienced how our own judgments can depend on how we feel. And we are certainly aware that the judgments of others vary with their moods too. Positive mood helps people be more cooperative and elicit reciprocation. And negotiators in a good mood tend to end up with better results than do unhappy negotiators. In group decision-making, the book discusses informational cascades. Informational cascades happen as people learn from others. And if early speakers seem to like something or want to do something, others might assent. To say the least, informational cascades make noise across groups possible and even likely, and that in the world of group decision-making that we all inhabit, even a little social influence can make judgments and decisions worse, not better. The book discusses group polarization, which means that when people speak with one another, they often end up at a more extreme point in line with their original inclinations, and this increases noise and errors. The book says the central causes of noise include interpersonal differences arising from a variety of factors, including personality and cognitive style, idiosyncratic variations in the weighting of different considerations, and the different uses that people make of the very same scales. It explores why people are oblivious to noise and are frequently unsurprised by events and judgments they could not possibly have predicted. The book identifies several types of noise. It defines system noise as undesirable variability in the judgments of the same case by multiple individuals. It identifies its two major components, which can be separated when the same individuals evaluate multiple cases. Level noise is variability in the average level of judgments by different judges. Pattern noise is variability in judges' responses to particular cases. In the study, the amounts of level noise and pattern noise were approximately equal. However, the component that was identified as pattern noise certainly contains some occasion noise, which can be treated as random error. From the perspective of noise reduction, a singular decision is a recurrent decision that happens only once. The book explores the practical question of how you can improve your judgments and prevent error. It investigates efforts to tackle noise in medicine, business, education, government, and elsewhere. It introduces several noise reduction techniques that it collects under the label of decision hygiene. It presents 5 case studies of domains in which there is much documented noise and in which people have made sustained efforts to reduce it, with instructively varying degrees of success. The case studies include unreliable medical diagnoses, performance ratings, forensic science, hiring decisions, and forecasting in general. It concludes by offering a system it calls the mediating assessments protocol, a general-purpose approach to the evaluation of options that incorporates several key practices of decision hygiene and aims to produce less noisy and more reliable judgments. The book presents a discussion of the fact that even if an algorithm does not expressly consider race or gender, it could turn out to be as biased as human beings are. And in this regard, algorithms could be worse. Since they eliminate noise, they could be more reliably biased than human judges. For many people, a key practical consideration is whether an algorithm has a disparate impact on identifiable groups. Exactly how to test for disparate impact, and how to decide what constitutes discrimination, bias, or fairness for an algorithm, are surprisingly complex topics. Algorithms reduce noise, but they may produce errors of their own. If so, the goal is to find other, improved algorithms that do not cause the same problems, and that might do better than existing ones. There are trade-offs. If there is a noise reduction strategy that has too many downsides even while reducing noise, that strategy might be rejected. But it is also important to have reasonable expectations. Even efforts that do not perfectly remove noise can make a significant difference. In terms of their size, the effects are generally smaller than stable differences between individuals and their levels and patterns of judgments. As noted, for instance, the chance that an asylum applicant will be admitted in the United States drops by 19% if the hearing follows 2 successful ones by the same judge. This variability is certainly troubling, but it pales in comparison with the variability between judges. Given such disparities, reducing one of these numbers by 19% does not seem like such a big deal. In the end, the authors urge both private and public organizations to conduct noise audits and to undertake, with unprecedented seriousness, stronger efforts to reduce noise and urge that should they do so, organizations could reduce widespread unfairness and reduce costs in many areas. Let's distill the key lessons from noise into actionable takeaways. Noise is a pervasive problem. It exists in every field where judgment is involved, often more than we realize. Bias isn't the only culprit, while bias gets a lot of attention. Noise contributes significantly to errors in decision-making. System noise leads to unfairness, when similar situations are judged differently by different people within a system. It creates inequity. Structure minimizes noise. Implementing structured decision-making processes can significantly reduce unwanted variability. Awareness is the first step. Recognizing the existence and impact of noise is crucial for improving judgment and decision-making processes. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.